Going on, Fadedculture? I'm Adrian and Barron. We got my man Eduardo here on the chair. Today we're going to be giving him a low fade. But before we get started, please do us a favor and hit that subscribe button down below, as it does help out this channel immensely. With that said, let's jump right into this tutorial. Alright guys, so to start off this tutorial, I'm going to start with combing the hair all around the parietal ridge and crown area just to make sure it's laying right. Then we're going to get our trimmers and make our first guideline. Bringing it down towards the back and around the head, and make sure it just ends up on the same spot that you started with on the other side, which is right under that temple peak area. Now, using my seniors with the lever fully open, we're going to make our second guideline, taking that up about an inch or so, and just make sure you're running parallel with that guideline right under it. One thing I am constantly doing is always brushing the hair. Now, with my number 1 guard lever still fully open, we're going to create our third guideline. Stay extremely soft with these guidelines. You never want to dig them in, as it will be harder for you to take them out when we come back. Now, with my number 2 lever still fully open, we're going to continue the cleanup process. I don't really want to say this is a guideline because I make sure I'm flicking out towards the top, so it's not really creating nothing too heavy. And right now when I come back with that number 3, it's going to blend right into the top. Last guard that we're using on this haircut is the number 3 lever still fully open, and as you can see right here, I'm really flicking as I get towards the top. Recombing the crown area and parietal ridge area. As you can see, he does have a little bit of weight, so we're going to go ahead and attack some of that weight with thinning shears over comb. We're pretty much done cleaning up the head. Now, to come back, we got our first guideline that we did with the trimmers, second with the lever fully open, and third with the 1 guard lever open. Using my 1.5 guard, closing the lever just a bit, which makes it that 3/4 position, we're going to start attacking that top guideline. Now, with my half guard lever in that same 3/4 position, we're going to attack the second one coming down. And the reason I say 3/4 because the lever is not halfway, it's somewhere in between halfway and fully open. Now, this half guard usually does create a little faint line on top. So now with my 1 guard lever still in that 3/4 position, we're going to remove that faint line that half guard created. With this 1 guard, I use basically just the corners of the clipper to remove that line. Now for my final line, I use this 3-step process: lever close, halfway, and then fully open. That's basically just my base. I always set that in and then come right back and do any trigger play, taking each of those notches just slightly up. Here my lever is halfway now. And with this glass guideline, I usually do work in smaller sections just so I can really get down to the details. Now lever fully open, and if you haven't experimented using just the corners of the clipper, I highly suggest you give it a try. That way you can get a feel for what those corners actually do. Here I'm basically done with that 3-step process. It looks okay, but I want to get really into detail, so here the trigger play begins. And for this trigger play, there's really is no one size fits all. This is literally gonna vary from client to client, and even from his left side of the head to the right side of the head. This all just comes with time and you developing that eye for how much detail you want to get into. I'm basically done now with this. Now I'm gonna start working on that back section and breaking that down into small sections as well. Starting with my lever close. Now halfway. And finally, all the way open. Now the trigger play begins. And take your time with this whole process, as haircuts, I mean, now even in the barbershop, they take me anywhere from 45 to an hour. But I remember in the beginning, I mean, haircuts would easily take me, 90 minutes or so. But I mean, it really does come down to you just taking your time and trying to figure it out and seeing what works best for every client, because some clients do not need as much lever play, and with some you do have to compress your guidelines more than others. Finally, the trigger play begins. I usually do this technique with my trimmer right under that first guideline, and this basically just gets a little closer to the head, so it's going to help me transition from that shaver into the fade. About mid-ears, where I start to remove the hair on the sides, and I do leave that faint line towards the top, that way I know how high up to take my shaver. Continuing that same process all around the head. And yes, my clippers are 0 gap. Now to begin the shaving process, and as you approach that faint line towards the top, I always turn the shaver this way and use just the corners of it. I usually run the back of my fingers against the back of his head. That way I know in what direction the grain is going, just to ensure that I'm cutting against it for a closer, smoother shave. As for the beard, I use a reverse fade process, starting with my number 1 guard fully open, and then halfway, then close. And then I remove that number 1 guard and do the exact same thing. Open fully, halfway, and then close. Wetting some of the hair so I can easily clip it back. As usual, starting the edge up in the center. As for that C curve on the other side, I usually kind of just run my pinky from the other side just so I can get an idea that they're both even and one's not higher than the other. Of course, I usually do step back as well, but this is a technique that I use to set it in. And for clients with really thick facial hair, I usually do this rough draft of cleaning it all with my trimmer, and then I actually come in with my electric shaver and remove most of it, and then just tune in those details with my straight blade. As you can see here, I'm using the electric shaver, telling him to stretch his lip down so we can get some of that mustache area. Starting with strokes with the grain, and then we come back and shave against the grain. Using my opposite hand to help stretch out that skin. Like I said, don't be afraid to stretch out that skin. It's gonna help you shave a lot smoother. And when you get to that mustache area, ensure that you're asking your client to pull his lip down. Damping the hair a bit, getting it ready to blow dry. Starting with high heat, mid-air. We're gonna start brushing the hair in the direction that we want it to lay, following it with the blow dryer. Shout outs to my brother who got me this Dyson blow dryer for Christmas. This thing is the truth. Brushing the hair in the up direction to create a lot of volume towards the front. And heat opens up the cuticle and makes the hair more malleable so you can style it. Now we're gonna use a cold shot on the blow dryer and close that cuticle to basically lock in the hairstyle. Here, emulsifying some matte pomade, and what you want to do is rub it in his eyes. No, I'm just playing. Now you want to start rubbing it at the top using just kind of on the surface, as the blow dryer did most of the styling. Adding some semi-permanent hair dye to bring in those details. And I like to dilute my semi-permanent hair dye with water. I know some people in the comments say they use alcohol, but I've always liked the way water dilutes it. In case y'all forgot, here's the before, and boom, here's the after. Let me know down in the comments below, guys, what y'all would like to see next, and even what y'all think of this process. Is there something else that I could bring into light and give more detail on for y'all? But yeah, as always, guys, thank y'all for tuning in. Please subscribe, as it does help out this channel. Until next time, peace.